Does anyone else feel like winter keeps getting pushed back? I remember it used to be as cold as it is now back in October when I was younger. But it's not like winter is getting shorter. It's just like it's getting delayed. Like it's almost like Christmas doesn't feel like it's Christmas. It's not cold enough outside. It's not cloudy enough, you know? Anyways, we're here to talk about life. So, life doesn't always go perfect, as many of you guys would know. We have the usual highs and lows, and it's easy in retrospect to forget how long these periods feel when you're living through them. You can only remember so many memories, and if nothing's really going on in those really low moments, you're not going to remember exactly how you felt. So it seems like everything that happened went by fast. But when you're actually living in it, especially in those lows, time can move really slow and it feels like nothing's happening. I've certainly had moments where it feels like I'm stuck at this bottom, where it feels like the future is not going to be as great as I thought, and that times are like really sucky. During COVID, at one point my grandpa got it really bad and it eventually killed him. Luckily for me, we visited him a few days before and I happened to catch it a little bit after he died. I felt like I couldn't really move and my muscles were incredibly sore. I still have my taste though. Of course, my mom lost her dad and now I have it, so she locked me in my room for the first few days because she's also a D1 when it comes to freaking out. It was nice initially to have that time to myself, not really see anyone, but eventually it just felt so lonely. Luckily, the sickness went away slowly over the course of 5 days. But that time was awful. I mean, my grandpa, one of the greatest and smartest people I've ever known, one of my biggest influences, had just died, and I had like one day to mourn it with others before I got locked in my room and I was just sitting there depressed by myself. And then on top of that, let's not forget that COVID was a terrible time. Luckily I'm in Florida, so my life wasn't completely over, but we still had the mask, we still had a social distance. I mean, I was a swimmer and they would make you put on a mask right after you got out of the pool. And I don't know if you know this, but if you put things around your mouth and they get wet, you can't breathe through it. So we were literally like suffocating. In hindsight, it was a relatively short period of time, 2-3 days of actually being locked up, not seeing people. But while I was actually living it, it felt like it would never end. But it's those tough times that you have, and you have to be tough throughout them, because then on the other side, you become a much better person. I learned a lot from my solitary confinement. In the span of 2 days, I grew and matured a ton. I mean, all I could really do was just self-reflect. Honestly, without that period in my life, there'd be no weekly shtick. Not only because I wouldn't have the maturity and knowledge to understand that I gained from that solitary confinement, but because I'd probably never come up with this idea. I'd never have a goal like Schtick Productions. Here's another story. So, 2008, 2009, my dad got laid off because of the big stock market crash. Literally nothing he could have done about it. He and my mom had recently bought a brand new home. Like, as it was being built, they bought it. We lived in it for a little bit. I was just a little kid, and my mom was pregnant with my sister. And this man, he lost his job, and he had a bad degree. It's like a completely useless degree. No one's ever hiring with that degree. He has everything to lose. And what does he do? We move into a new home, renting, of course, because, he had to declare bankruptcy, no credit score. He does online college during the day to get his master's while working the night shift as a hospital janitor. We move like every 2 years to a new rental house. Every time we move, he gets a little bit better of a job, and eventually, less than 10 years after he declared bankruptcy, he buys a 5-bedroom house and pays it off in like 4 or 5 years. That's a complete 180. One of the biggest things to remember during these times is that you have to have a good mindset. You have to be able to see the future and that time's going to keep on moving. Because it really is easy and tempting to give up. But once you make it through winter, the snow melts. I hope you all enjoyed day 2 of the winter break special daily. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss the rest of the special. If you have a topic or question for me, please write me a beautiful letter in the form below. I hope you like this title. I was getting inspired by looking at episode titles of different shows and animes. So this is stolen straight from Snafu. And yeah, until next time.